Hello, today's lesson is on Inheritance chapter 11 and today's theme is If Mina Marries Junki. Let us see. The learning objective for today's lesson is 11.1.4 Construct Monohybrid Cross Diagram. Second one, 11.1.5 Determine genotypic and phenotypic ratios of filial generations in a monohybrid cross. Now, we look at the success criteria for today's lesson. There are 3 success criteria for today's lesson. At the end of the lessons, students should be able to, the first one, construct a schematic diagram of inheritance in a monohybrid cross. Number 2, students are able to use Punnett Square in showing monohybrid inheritance. And the third one, students should be able to calculate the probability of phenotype in F1 generation. The vocabulary for today's lesson that you should know. The first one is monohybrid cross. Second one is genotype. The third one is parental generation. Next is filial generation. Next is Punnett Square. Next is phenotype. And the last one is schematic diagram of inheritance. Now, we look at the monohybrid cross diagram. Before we look at the monohybrid cross diagram, I refresh back the definition of monohybrid inheritance. Monohybrid inheritance meaning the study of inheritance that involve only one characteristic. Okay, so now we want to see the inheritance meaning the offspring between Mina and her partner who is Junki using schematic diagram of inheritance. Okay, so what is it that I want to study? Okay, I want to study the characteristic of her dimple. Okay, she has a dimple, but Junki doesn't have any. No. Okay, this one, she has one. So I want to know if their offspring going to have dimple or not. Okay, first, I have to determine whether she is heterozygote or homozygote. In fact, she can be heterozygote, she can also be homozygote. Let's say, I just take an example. Let's say she is a heterozygote and dimple is a dominant trait. So if dimple is a dominant trait and she is heterozygote, then her genotype must be capital D and small d. Let's say I give the letter D for the characteristic of dimple. And since Junki doesn't have any dimple, definitely he has a recessive allele. Right? So a pair of recessive allele. So now I'm going to show you how to use the schematic diagram to show the inheritance of dimple between Mina and Junki. Okay, now I want to show you how to do the schematic diagram of inheritance, of genetic inheritance. Okay, alright, so we start with parental generation. Parental generation, or in short, we can use P generation. Who is our P generation just now? We have Mina with Junki. Alright, what is Mina genotype just now? I already decided that she is heterozygote. For the dimple, so we have capital D, right, and small letter d, and Junki, because he doesn't have any dimple, so he has recessive allele, small letter d, small letter d. Right. Okay, now during meiosis, okay, your chromosome become haploid. Okay, so the line represent meiosis. Okay, so the allele will separate. Okay, this one we have capital D, small letter D, small letter D, small letter D, because the allele will separate during meiosis to produce gametes. Okay, so for me now, her gamete is in her ovum. For Junki, his gamete is in his sperm. Okay, so this one is the ovum, this one is his sperm. Alright, now sperm we try to fertilize with ovum. Okay, so we have fertilization after this. So it's either this sperm will meet with this ovum, that will be capital D, okay, capital D, small letter D, or this ovum will meet with this sperm, also capital D, small letter D, or maybe this ovum will meet with this sperm, so it has small letter D, or this ovum will meet with this sperm. What process is that? Fertilization. Alright, so these are the offspring genotype, or we call as filial 1 generation. Okay, meaning or F1 generation. Okay, the short form for filial 1 generation. So D, capital D, small letter D, capital D, small letter 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 D is filial 1 generation genotype. What is the phenotype? Okay, phenotype is what we can observe. Okay, so the first child, the probability is having dimple. Why? Because it has capital D. The second one also having dimple. The third one, no capital D, no dimple. And the last one also no dimple. So if I want to calculate the probability of their child having dimple, okay, probability of their child having dimple would be 1, 2, 3, 4. So meaning 2 over 4, which is 50%. Alright, the one that I've shown you before is to show monohybrid cross using the schematic diagram. Okay, the next one I'm going to show you how to do the monohybrid cross, okay, using the Punnett Square, and the outcome is still the same. Okay, the second method is the Punnett Square. Okay, again we start with parental generation. Okay, who is Nina plus Junki. Okay, what is their genotype? Okay, same thing. Genotype for Mina, capital letter, small letter D. Junki, small letter D, small letter D. Alright, in this Punnett Square, we don't use arrow. Instead, we use square because it is called as Punnett Square. Right? So you divide it into 3 columns and 3 rows. Alright, this one, the first one, you divide it into half. Alright, so let's say this one, I want to put mom up here. And I want to put dad down here. Actually, you can put dad up here, mom down here, up to you. Alright, so I will put the allele in each box. Okay, meaning, okay, they already undergo separation during meiosis. So I have capital letter D for mom, And another box is small letter D for mom. For dad, I have small letter D, I have small letter D. Now, during fertilization, okay, this capital D will meet with this small d, so you put inside this box. Capital D, small letter D. Alright, next one. Okay, small letter D, small letter D. This box, okay, going down. Okay, capital D, small letter D. This box, okay, going down. And straight, you have small letter D. Alright, now what is the phenotype? Okay, this one is the genotype. Okay, genotype for the F1 generation. What is the phenotype? Okay, you have capital D, small letter D, meaning having dimple. This one also having dimple. This one no dimple. This one no dimple. So, F1 generation. Okay. For Punnett Square, you have to write the everything outside the box. Okay. F1 generation phenotype. Okay, you have having dimple. Okay, 2, no dimple is 2. So total you have 4. So if I want to calculate probability of F1 generation or the child generation having dimple, same way 2/4, which is 50%. So the outcome is still the same. Okay, we have come to the end of today's video with the theme of our lesson, If Nina Marries Chunky. If you still don't understand, ask me in the live class. If you understand, good. Bye-bye.